Dr. Martin was nominated by the Republican Party to run for this open seat on the Hamilton County Commission District 3. Joe Smith is running as an independent. Both of them are trying to fill out the 2 years that remains the term that Marty Haynes vacated when he was elected to county assessor. So they will be one of 9 members on the county commission that sets government policy for the county, oversees its operations, controls an $680 million budget, and is key in shaping the future of our county. So we appreciate the candidates being here and your willingness to come here tonight and to share and to hear directly from them in this important contest. In a moment, you'll hear both from Greg Martin and Joe Smith, but I wanted to quickly go over the form that we'll use and the format for tonight's forum. Each of the candidates will begin with a 5-minute opening statement, which they'll introduce themselves, tell them a little bit why they are running for this office. Then we'll get directly to the questions that you have all submitted. And as we mentioned earlier, at 7 o'clock, we'll take a brief break, and you'll be able to submit additional questions. I would ask you to write your name and write the question on the card that are provided. At 7 o'clock, we'll gather some more questions for us in the hour that we'll try to get to as many of these questions as we can in the next hour. So with that, let me try to begin our debate, and in a moment we'll have the opening statements. But let me try to introduce briefly both of our candidates. We're really fortunate, I think, in Hamilton County, both Greg Martin and Joe Smith have had a long and distinguished career of civil involvement and service. Both of them have been church pastors. Both of them call themselves conservatives. Both of them vote Republican. Dr. Martin is a 53-year-old realtor with the Berkshire Hathaway Home Services and has served as the Hamilton County School Board since 2012 and elected 2 years ago in 2014. In fact, Dr. Martin has the unique distinction. He actually served on another school board when he lived down in Long Beach, Mississippi, where he was appointed to serve from 1993 to 1996. He's a graduate of Hickson High School, Bryan College. He earned both his master's and doctoral degrees from the New Orleans Baptist Theological Seminary. Dr. Martin has served on the boards of Hickson Kiwanis, the Friends of Hickson, the North River Civic Center, and the Hickson Council of the Chamber of Commerce. And last year he was named as the PTA School Board Member of the Year in Tennessee. He and his wife have 4 sons. Joe Smith is a 62-year-old Director of Mission Advancement for the YMCA of Metropolitan Chattanooga. Joe Smith has been a TSSAA referee for 25 years, the Regional Executive Director for YCAP for 18 years. He served as a team manager for the USA Team Olympic boxing team in 2008 at the Beijing Games, and has served as an officer of the Tennessee State Athletic Commission, including the term as a chairman. Previously served as an addiction counselor at multiple alcohol and treatment facilities, and served as a youth pastor at both the Memorial Baptist Church and the White Oak Baptist Church. Earlier this year, Joe was honored as a recipient of the Chattanooga Bar Association's Liberty Bell Award after being nominated as Father of the Year by one of his foster children that he and his wife had cared for over the years Joe was growing up, and carried the Olympic torch in 1996 games down in Atlanta. He and his wife of 44 years have 2 children and have raised 19 foster children. So with that, we will begin our forum, and by a flip of a coin, we decided earlier that Greg Martin will make the first opening statements. Greg, your first 5 minutes.
Well, I thank you so much, Dave, for doing this and for coming out here to Hickson tonight. And thank you for all of you that have expressed an interest in our government, because it truly matters who governs. And I thank you for taking the time to come out on Monday evening. 2 days before early voting. Looking forward to that. I am so glad to be here at Loftus Middle School in this partnership with McConnell Elementary. And I don't know where Rebecca and Christy slipped off to, but they've done a great job in putting this together, and I truly appreciate it, because this is not a strange place to me. This is home for me. This is where my children went to school, at McConnell Elementary and Loftus Middle School. And I want to say about this school, because I know many of you are parents here, that my children that were educated here, all 4 of them, when they finished their academic career, they're all adults now, they all were accepted into the University of Tennessee because of the background and the foundation that they got at this fine elementary school and this middle school. They didn't all necessarily go to UT, but they all got accepted there. And I'm very proud of that fact, because they got a great public education right here in this community. I still live here. I live in Hidden Harbor, and so we're still zoned for this part we don't have children in school anymore, we're zoned for this part, and I have a very much a vested interest in this community and this part of our county. I have fond memories of when I got on the school board here in Tennessee. When I was elected to the school board or won the appointment process for the school board, one of the things that I did is I got involved with a lot of the parents and PTA organizations. I remember I used to go have breakfast once a month with the McConnell Moms is what I called them. I saw Tammy Baxter a little while ago somewhere. There she is. And her and some of those mothers, we would get together and go to Panera Bread and down here at the Southern Restaurant. And it really helped me understand from a parent's point of view some of the things that were going on and the concerns that they had. I was proud to work with several of the people at McConnell in getting the playground organized over here and helping with that to make that accessible to children with handicap needs. And we're very, very proud of that. When I came on the school board, one of the things that I noticed was that it had been 5 years since any capital fund expenditures took place. Those of you that have had children in Loftus for a long time, you'll remember the days when we used to sit in a room like this and it'd be raining and there would be garbage can buckets all over the place with this roof leak. How many of you remember those days that were Loftus? A lot of you do. And it really was disappointing to know that our community had not in 5 years spent $1 on capital improvements in District 3. I was very proud to work with other people to get that roof taken care of. And Pam, I know you're a teacher here. I'm assuming that everything is high and dry now. And but that was something that I was proud to be able to work on. Work with the mayor on the commissioner, Marty Haynes, on getting the aquaponics center at Dixon High. And tomorrow we'll be dedicating the new elementary school at Middle Valley. And so grateful to be a part of that. I say all that to say this. I think I know what it takes to get things done for our community. I think I've proven that. I think that I have done that. And I look forward to doing that as the county commissioner. This is my community. I'm a 5th generation Hamilton Countyan. As Dave mentioned, I graduated high school at Hickson in '81. Bryan College, I ran a business that was here in Hamilton County with Stonemore, the Lakewood Cemeteries, and Hamilton County Memorial Park. And then I had responsibilities that took 19 cemeteries over 4 states, 50 employees, and $12 million budget. Got out of that rodeo not too long ago, went to work with my mama, who's with me tonight. She worked as a realtor over at the Berkshire Hathaway, before it was Berkshire Hathaway, Better Homes and Garden Realty Center. And it's really kind of fun to work in an office where your mom worked at, and some of those people still know your mama. And that is what I do. My community involvement has been focused on Hickson. And it has in so many ways. I'm a member of the Hickson Kiwanis Club. I've been on the school board for District 3. I had a leadership class at Hickson High School with Commissioner Haynes for a couple of years. I've been a part of the Chamber of Commerce and the Hickson Council. I'm on the program chairman. I'm on the North River Civic Center, the Friends of Hickson, and was here just a few weeks ago when we had our Bible in the Schools program, which is an excellent program that's funded by people like you that care about our community and to participate and to be a part of that. You know, when I think about a public servant, what I want as a public servant, I think is what you want. You don't necessarily need someone that's going to vote the way you would vote 100%, because that's impossible. My wife, who's here with me, we don't even agree 100%, especially on the TV channel. But I want someone that agrees with me at least 70, 75%, and 100% of the time will tell me the truth. And I want you to know that's the type of person that I want to be. My mom is here. She's not too old or fragile to whoop me. If I ever lie to you, you want to talk to her. I want to be that type of person that votes the way that I know the people and the values of this district, and to always tell the truth. And I look forward to this expanded opportunity to serve on the county commission. Thank you very much.
I too, like Greg, thank you for taking time to be here. And I know there's a lot of places you could be besides here, but it shows you care. Thank you so much to the PTAs of both of these great schools. Thank you for our moderator. Also, thank you for your employer for endorsing my candidacy. I appreciate that as well. Let me say this. My wife kind of rolled her eyes a minute ago because you made one mistake. You said 44 years, and she don't want me to make her any older than she is. So that's probably just a typo. The fact is, it's been 41 wonderful years. And I've got, stand up, Smith, stand up over here. Y'all just stand up real quick. This is my family, at least some of them. I've got the two prettiest granddaughters you ever did see. Now, some of you out there would argue that. Some of you, I've been, y'all may be seated. Thank you. I've been referred to as Dad, as Mr. Joe, as Mr. Smith, as a lot of things. But the greatest joy today, I'm a pops. There's nothing like being a pops. So thank you guys for coming. You know, I'm honored, and this is really, this journey, I'm 63. I just turned 63. I think you said 62. I just had a birthday last week. And I tell you, I've learned a lot in the last 2 or 3 months. All my life I've been a servant. I don't know how to do anything yet. That's all I've ever done. I'm a servant. My wife and I have raised 2 children of our own. We've raised 19 foster children. And that's all I know to do is to serve. That's all I've ever done. I was born in Cincinnati, Ohio. I hope you got that little bright orange seat. One thing Greg and I have in common, we got a lot of things in common. But one thing we really have in common, we're Tennessee fans. So I agree with you there, brother. So I hope you got that big orange sheet when you came in, because I won't take all the time to tell you everything, but you can read it there. I was fortunate. I was born in Cincinnati, Ohio, Hamilton County, Cincinnati, Ohio. And my mom and dad didn't want me. And so we were adopted, my sister and I, luckily together, raised in Chattanooga, Tennessee. The Burks Chapel Church up on Hickson Pike. Some of you won't remember this, but there used to be a little frame house right next door when Burks was just a one-building little chapel. Some of you, Bruce Wilson, you'll remember that. A long, long time ago. But I lived there until I was 6 years old, and then we moved to Red Bank, and I grew up in Red Bank and graduated from Red Bank High School. And then when Miss Paula called me, or when I called her, I guess is a better thing to say, we moved to Hickson and lived here ever since. In 1998, I started a program called YCAP, which operates under the umbrella of the YMCA. And it's been 18 years now, and I spent a lot of time in juvenile courts, a lot of time in schools. We're fortunate in our district that we don't have as many problems as some schools do, although there's a lot of problems right here. I've got 40 kids in that program today. Out of those 40, we got 2 nuclear families out of 40, meaning biological mom, biological dad. The rest of them are being raised by single mamas, grandmamas, foster care. Some of them will leave at night and they're not real sure where they're going to pillow their head. And listen, this school's not immune to that either. Got some of your kids in that program today from this community. So a lot's been said that Joe Smith does a lot of great work. Well, I just get to be the vehicle for a lot of great work God does. Let me tell you, there's no community immunity. About anywhere we can stand in this community, within a stone's throw, there's somebody that's hurting. And somebody that has needs. And somebody just needs somebody to put their arms around. And that's what I tried to do. I've been criticized because I say I'm not a politician. Well, I don't know if I ever want to be a politician. I looked up what that word meant, and my wife's already laughing because she knows what I'm about to say. And I believe it said it came from the root word poly, which means many, and the ticks come from blood-sucking parasites. Now, I'm not sure I want to be like that, and I don't believe Greg does either, but if you look up the definition, that's what it says. Now, I believe that an elected official ought to be a servant. That's what he ought to be. And I would argue, and I have from the beginning, why in the world we need Democrats and Republicans on the county commission. You know, it's a crying shame. We got commissioners right now that won't even speak to each other. We got school board members that won't speak to each other. It's a crying shame. At some point in time, we've got to lay politics aside and work together to solve a lot of problems that we have in our communities. Let me tell you, the commissioner from District 3, he'll represent you. That seat doesn't belong to the person that sits there. That seat belongs to you, the citizens. That seat belongs to you. And you're going to be that, whoever sits in that seat, whether it be Greg or whether it be me, is going to make a lot of decisions that don't just affect you, but affects the community at large. So that's why I'm running. That's why I'm running as an independent conservative all my life. running as an independent.
Thank you, gentlemen. We've had questions from a number of people that have submitted them, including Lindsay Coleman and a number of others that have raised questions a little bit about our education in Hamilton County and what we should do. So we'll start with you, Dr. Martin. In terms of improving communication between the county commission, which funds the schools, and the school board that operates the schools, what should we do to improve that? And is it necessary in your mind that we need more money for schools?
Well, that's a great question. It kind of goes to one of the things that I wanted to respond to that Mr. Smith said. On the one hand, he says the county commission doesn't need to be Democrat or Republican because some of them can't get along. And he also says on the school board, some of the people can't get along. But on the school board, there are no Democrats and Republicans. Everything is independent. Everything is nonpartisan on that. So it doesn't matter if it's Democrat or Republican or independents, like the school board or the county commission is party politics. It doesn't really matter on that. It's the heart that gets along with people. I've never had a problem getting along with people on the county commission. I think I've worked very well with Commissioner Haynes. In fact, with the money that was spent on our schools, Commissioner Haynes and I sat down and talked about a lot of those things and what was going to be the best opportunity to spend that. I've sat down with our mayor many times to gain understanding about the school system and the budgetary process on that. It's been my privilege to work with Democrats and Republicans, with Greg Beck and Warren Mackey, who are Democrats, and to work with people on the school board that I totally don't agree with. Everyone from George Ricks, who said that we ought to rezone children based upon their family's financial ability, to people like David Testerman last January that told a constituent at our school board meeting to sit down and be quiet, her time was up. Everyone to my friend Rhonda Thurman, who is never shy about her views. And I've been able to work with everyone in between. And so I look forward to continuing that relationship and having that commitment and communication, open communication with school board members and county commissioners. I think I'm in that unique position as a person on the school board going onto the county commission to understand that role.
Mr. Smith, what's the role of the county commission in our school system in terms of funding and getting along with the school board that operates?
Well, you know, it's interesting. I thought your question to Mr. Martin was, does the schools need more money? I don't think that question was answered. So let me answer that question, and I'll answer your other question. Our county budget is about $670 million, about. I may be a few million off, but I think I'm pretty close. $417 million of that go to the schools. So the county commission approves that budget. They don't set it. I mean, the schools do that, and they come to the commission, and this is what we want, and then the commission decides how much it will allocate. But what's important is once it's allocated, it can never be lowered, and what it is what it is. My question is, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to see that we're just not getting the return on our investment. I don't know why that is, but it's got to be looked at before we even begin to think about giving more money. There's some real problems there. And so, and then your other question, repeat it again.
Well, just how you improve communication.
Well,
with the
you
county.
know, once again, the school board has one employee, that's the superintendent. Now, once those funds are allocated, the commission cannot dictate how the school board, the superintendent, how they spend those funds. There's got to be a better way that each school representative, each county commissioner can work together better to make sure that we're getting a return on our investment, because right now we just are not. I mean, our numbers in terms of growth. Yesterday we learned that we had a 1% drop in graduation rates over the last year. We score in the bottom third, but yet we fund more per student than any county in our state, second only to Williamson County. We got some real issues we got to look at. We got to look at how we're spending those dollars. Are we doing it effectively and being smart with the taxpayers' money, and all the while giving our children the best opportunity we can for a good education?
Dr. Martin, maybe 1 minute rebuttal then, both the question of whether you think the schools need more money, and then how, while you're on the school board.
You asked me 2 questions, I answered 1. I would say this about money. Here's the thing you need to understand. Our county has grown by 17,000 people in the last 5 years. And as a result of that, the county growth has been able to put $34 million into public education, where we haven't been necessary for us to raise taxes. In addition to that, we spent $138 million on new schools, all of that without a tax increase. So instead of having a tax increase, I think we need to continue the economic engine and continue the growth that's going on in this community. And I look forward to working with economic development to make sure that we have the resources available for growth for our school system.
Thank you. Mr. Smith, we'll start with you on this question. This comes from Roger Cooksey out of Hickson. He went over this story that was in the Sunday newspaper about the Times Free Press about the Corrections Department doesn't keep tabs on ankle monitors after hours. The Corrections Department said budget cuts in 2011 prevent them from doing their job. 2 different types of monitors are used, and one is monitored by a company in Colorado. Monitoring company sent emails alerts in immediately. However, no one in the Corrections Department sees itself during normal business hours. And the Sheriff's Department is always notified, and sometimes something isn't done. So, is the Sheriff's Department adequately handling that? And is there a funding problem for the Sheriff's Department in terms of handling the ankle braces program and others?
Well, you know, that's an issue that's going to really be a big issue over the next 12 to 24 months in terms of how are we handling people that violate the law and that end up in jail or end up on probation. Now, I tell you, I say this often, I go to the jail a lot, and luckily they let me out when I go down there, but I go down there to minister to people and to share my own personal story of hope for a lot of those guys. Let me tell you what the jail is. It's a place where criminals end up, people that violate the law. But it's the biggest mental health treatment center we got in our county. A lot of those people, they broke the law, they're where they need to be, but they also need mental health treatment, or they need an addiction treatment. Now, are we funding the sheriff and his department enough? I would argue that he'll probably say no. But the reality is, those guys that are being monitored by the probation departments, it would seem to me becomes their responsibility to make sure they're monitoring those guys that wear those ankle bracelets, and not just on the week or until 5:30, but 24 hours a day.
Dr. Martin, the ankle bracelets, is that adequately being enforced by the sheriff?
Well, the way y'all reported it, I think everyone in this room would say no. Now, as far as the funding of that, that'll be something that I will look into when I'm on the county commission. I do know this, that the sheriff's department spends $80,000 a day in housing the prisoners of our community. And if we could just get people to behave better, we'd have less of a burden there. And I know that the sheriff has done some great things. And, when I've been out talking to thousands of people, knocking on doors, it's a wonderful thing about running for office is you get to meet real people knocking on doors and talking to people. And, safety is one of the things that's huge to them. And I'm so proud that our sheriff has put SROs at this school. There he is right there. And it was here when my kids were here. You've been here a long time, brother. And at Hickson High, when we lost one in Hickson Middle, the sheriff was able to get that back for us. The other day I noticed the sheriff, he called me and said, Greg, we're getting ready to get a grant to get 6 more SROs to put in our schools. I think when it comes to those things about the ankle bracelets and funding, I'm not sure how he's allocating those monies as far as the SROs or ankle bracelets or the jails or patrol cars. I know he's on a program where we replaced like 120 of them in the last 3 years. And I think those are all good things, but those are things that I'm just going to have to be a little more educated on before I can make a definitive answer for Mr. Cooksey, my neighbor in Ed Harbor.
One more question. One more question on the crime forum before we break here at 7 o'clock. But Christy Carroll, Highfield from Hickson and others have sort of raised the question about crime overall. What do you think the greatest needs are in the county right now? The crime rate in Hamilton County, she says, seems to be growing exponentially. While most of the crime is centered within the city, not all of it is. What do you think the county needs to do to address the violent crime in Hamilton County as a whole? And then others have raised the question about the county jail, that is whether or not we need a new county jail, and the county ought to fund that as well.
Well, I think the county jail is going to be a very interesting conversation. And I know the report has not been released yet, at least it hasn't come to my hands yet, about that issue. It'll be something that I will look at with great detail. To me, if I'm given a choice between building a school like Gans Middle Valley or Falling Water that was 100 years old and Gans Middle Valley that was 70-something years old, over building the jail that was built in the 70s or 80s, I'm choosing the school every day. And I think most of the people in here would rather us put money in education. But it may be one of those things that we look at as far as outsourcing, that it's a good thing, maybe it's a bad thing. We do a lot of outsourcing in the school system with our cleaning system. A lot of our bus drivers, no offense, Fuzzy, but there you are. But we do have Durham and some of these others that help us in outsourcing. You've got to look at those things and see if that's the best thing for us long term, or if it's not. And I just haven't had the opportunity to study it. But I will tell you this, because it hasn't been released yet. I will tell you this, is that I'm the type of person that's going to study something before I make a decision. This past year, I voted for our teachers to get a raise, but I voted against the budget. Here's the reason why I voted against the budget. They handed it to me 48 hours before the vote and said it was a budget this thick and said, Dr. Martin, we need you to vote on this budget when we meet on Thursday. I said, there's no way in the world that I'm going to make a decision on a $417 million budget with 48 hours. That's not the way Greg Martin does business. And I'll be the same way when it comes to issues like that.
Mr. Smith, how would you address the question about what crime ways that we ought to address crime, and then also a specific question about do we need a new jail or not?
Well, if we wait for the sheriff's department, the police department, the county commission, the city council, our school teachers, to solve the problems we have with crime in our community, in our city, we're going to wait a long, long time. Let me tell you. As I look around this room, it's compelling. There's probably, I don't know, maybe 100 people here. What if all 100 of us picked out one person, just one young person, to love on, to mentor, to hold accountable, to encourage? Better still, what if all of us that are 30,000 Christians that worship every Sunday morning, or if those 30,000 picked out just one person to love on, to encourage, to hold accountable, to support? I would argue we probably wouldn't even need a police department. So all this is going to go away. We all got to roll up our sleeves and spend some sweat equity and be a part of the solution. We can't expect the problem's too massive for our police force to handle it alone. They need our help, each one of us. The jail is absolutely a need. I sure wouldn't want to see us build a jail before we meet our educational needs or build a school. However, we live in a country where I think, I see Judge Starnes back there, he might want to correct me, that you're innocent until proven guilty. And sometimes I worry, are we treating those guys that are in the county jail humanely before they've been convicted? And so that's going to be a real issue. But again, let me stress, it's a revolving door. And a lot of those people that end up in jail that have violated the law, what they really need is mental health or drug and alcohol treatments. That's a whole other issue.
Thank you, gentlemen. We're going to take just a 5-minute break, and if you've got questions and want to forward those to some of the people that are going around, and we'll collect those. If you have your name on that and some questions, we'll entertain those. Just take a few minutes break here and gather those right here.
He said hi.
Pen and pencil, that's available too.
Yeah, if you
Need a pen, pencil, or pen. Very steep.
Oh, I'm doing this barrier. I mean, executive branch of that barrier, like didn't realize that. It's like a wedding. All right. It was nice meeting you.
Nice meeting you.
We're ready for restaurants again. That's why I stayed at the bottom.
Oh, okay, cool. Good. It's always the second time. It's going well.
Are there any other questions that
Trying to
need to be
convince
submitted?
If we all can take a seat, let's get started again. If you please take a seat, we'll try to get started again.
Everyone will go ahead and sit back down. We'd like to go ahead and get started again if you could, but please take your seats again.
I can do that. Come on.
Well, we'll start this round with a question to Dr. Mark. We spent a lot of talk about discretionary funds that the county commissioners have. Do you plan to accept the discretionary funds? And if yes, why? And how would you use those?
Sure, and I'll answer that question in just a second, but I want to respond to the statement that Mr. Smith made before we closed. And I appreciate what he said about 30,000 Christians and that we ought to mentor other people. And I agree with that 100%. And I've done much of that in my life through the leadership class at Dixon High. That's why I'm a member of the Dixon Kiwanis. That's why I'm involved in the Friends of Dixon. But at the end of the day, this is not about that. This is about government and helping people be the type of citizens that they need to be, because at the end of the day, we want moms and dads to take care of their children and not the government in doing that. With regard to that question about discretionary fund, I am not for it. I have been my privilege to be at numerous town halls. My friend Ken Smith, and I saw Assessor Haynes, but he left. We held several town halls across Hickson over the last 3 or 4 years, the three of us getting together to talk to the public. And I'll never forget the last one that we were at. That question of discretionary money came up, and it was about the only thing that people got up on their feet and clapped and said, we do not want that for our government. I'm not for discretionary funds because the people are not for those discretionary funds. I call them re-electing funds. And so I'm not for them. I think that when we work together, we can accomplish things. We don't have to have those individualized re-electing funds.
Just a real quick follow-up. There's about $14,000 left in the discretionary fund that Marty Haynes did not spend. Would you want to turn that back in the county, or do you think that should be spent?
Is that discretionary fund or is that travel fund, expense money? There's a difference.
I think it's discretionary.
Do you think or do you know? I don't mean to be tit for tat, but if you know, then that's a question that's worth answering. But if you don't know and it's something that is travel fund, then that's a separate issue.
Okay. If there is leftover funds, should that be spent or turned back in the county?
It's $14,000. If it can't be turned back in, I would probably turn it back in, because philosophically, I've listened to people in our community and they don't like the re-electing fund. But if it's travel money, and I understand that's what the big brouhaha was a week ago Wednesday, that's a different story. And that's a different issue. You didn't ask about it, but I am aware of it.
Okay. Mr. Smith, would you accept discretionary money? Should the county continue that program?
Well, there is no discretionary money. It no longer exists. And I would not be for resurrecting that discretionary money if our budget can handle it. Now, let me tell you, I understand where Mr. Mark's coming from, a re-electing fund. But I also know of some very, very worthy projects that have been funded out of those dollars. But should it be there? Not if our budget can't handle it without having some kind of tax increase. Now, again, let me emphasize, because some of those folks are sitting here now, that in the past, those monies have funded some very worthy projects. But I would not be for resurrecting it if our budget just can't handle it.
Thank you. Here's a question from Lisa McGuire of Bakewell. What are your views on public transportation? I'll start with you, Mr. Smith. Should public transportation be provided in rural areas? What's the county's role in public transportation in the rural counties, the rural parts of our county?
Well, you know, if you can't get somewhere, you can't get nothing done. And once again, I don't know if that should be the county's responsibility to be running all over the place to pick people up to get to doctor's appointments or get to the grocery store. I think that's where we come in. Once again, I referenced a while ago where we got to find folks that have needs and get involved in their lives and mentoring and providing some of those needs. If our county budget can afford to expand the rural transportation services that we have now, then we ought to do that if we can afford to do it. But once again, I think it's about me and you and all of us getting involved in people's lives and providing some of those services that shouldn't really be government's responsibility.
Dr. Martin, what's your view on public transportation in the rural area?
Well, I'm curious about a question from Bakewell. I want to hear from people in Hickson, Lakeside, Middle Valley, and Vic Ridge, but I will answer that question because those are the voters that are going to be making the decisions. You know, Mr. Smith has said a couple of times, if we can grow the budget, we could do discretionary fund. If we can grow the budget, we could look at those transportation. I think that's what I just heard him say, or something close. I'm not trying to misquote. Y'all all heard just exactly what I heard. Here's the reality. County Commission, with the help of the mayor, can raise taxes on everyone in here, and we can do all of those things and 10 times more. I'm not for doing that. And I've made a commitment that I will not be for a tax increase to expand the role of government during the remainder of this term. I'm not going to be for that, and here's the reason why. Because when I've been out knocking on thousands of doors, one of the things that people have said to me over and over again is, Greg, please don't raise our taxes. And so I don't think that we need to expand government with transportation or some of these other things, because that's an increase on your taxes, on your property, and that's not what the people of Hickson want, in Lakeside, in Middle Valley, and Big Ridge.
Mr. Smith, on that point, is there any circumstance where you would support a property tax increase in the remainder of this term?
Any circumstance, I don't know that I can say that there is not. Do I want am I for a property tax increase? Absolutely not. But your question's kind of loaded there. Any circumstance. Let me tell you, and apparently,
Or do you think it's needed in the next two? Do you see a scenario where it would be needed in the next couple of years?
a property tax increase? Well, again, I think that that's something that we have to look at and study. I'm not equipped to do we need a property tax increase? I don't think we do. I think we need to be better stewards of our taxpayers' dollars that we have today. Now, let me tell you, I want to go back to education for just a minute. Our schools, holistically, are not doing well. And we hadn't been a good steward of those monies. And if we were to have a tax increase, I'm not so sure, again, we ought to continue to pour money into the schools until we make sure we're getting a return on the investment, because we hadn't got a very good return on our investment over the last 4 years while Mr. Martin has been a part of that school board with one employee that they're responsible for. So tax increase, no, I'm not for a tax increase. Your question was any circumstances. Well, that's a little bit unfair because there may be a circumstance, but no, I do not support a tax increase, and certainly not a tax increase on senior citizens, because I now are one. Okay?
To follow up on that just briefly too, there's been a proposal and several questions about senior tax freeze if there is a tax increase. Would you support Hamilton County adopting a senior tax freeze for seniors?
Yes, I would, and I will lead the charge. If the tax proposal is brought on the property, I will be against the tax increase, and I will be for the senior tax freeze because 85% of the citizens of this county voted for that. But let me say this about education. Mr. Smith is wrong about the school system not having return on investment. I come to the Renaissance program at Loftus Middle School twice a year, every year, and over half the students in this school make straight A's and straight B's. That's something that we should be very proud of. And those of you in Loftus, you know that. Do we have challenges? Of course we have challenges. Can we have more money in the school system? Of course we could. You can. It's kind of like my wife going shopping. I could always give her more money to go shopping. But I am not going to be for a tax increase, and I don't think that's a loaded question at all. I think it's a very fair question, and it's a question that's quite appropriate in a forum like this. I've said that I will not be for a tax increase unless there's an emergency. You never can tell. The federal government might come in here and say to us, y'all have to build a new jail. You don't have a choice. That might be a different situation that we have to look at. But fundamentally, I'm not for taxes, and if one is proposed in the next 2 years, I will be the one that will lead the charge for a senior tax breaks. I am not a senior yet, but I have a mama that is.
If Education 2.0 and some of the initiatives that study the schools come out with recommendations and they suggest that money needs to be part of the solution, you would still rule that out?
Well, Chattanooga 2.0 is not an elected body that is accountable to the people, like a county commission and a school board. And I think it's very important that we take input from all types of people in the community, but we hold the people that we elect accountable for those decisions. And I'll give you a very good example, and my friend Jonas is here from Unified Ed. He's new to Unified Ed, but when Superintendent Smith left, Unified Ed went all around the community in the 9 districts and had meetings about what kind of superintendent we need to have. They had them everywhere. I had a meeting at Hickson High the same night that they had a meeting. They had 4 people from out of district at their meeting. I had 40 or 50 at our meeting at the Hickson Little Theater because it was important as the elected representative that I listened to what the people of this community thought was important when it comes to the next superintendent.
Mr. Smith, Dr. Martin earlier referenced the importance of economic development. We've had some questions about what's appropriate in terms of spurring economic development. Do you think that property tax abatement and or pilot agreements and incentives are necessary for enticing businesses both to come here and to expand here? What would you do in terms of providing property tax relief to encourage economic development?
Well, that's a very controversial topic. And, the reality is our community is growing. And to entice business and industry to come to our community, that creates jobs, that creates growth, that creates tax revenue. Sometimes we're going to have to do that if we want to attract those businesses. But I got to tell you, if I was one of those businesses, first thing I would want to look at is what's the opportunity for my child and their education. And I tell you, again, I said in the beginning, Loftus Middle School, McConnell Elementary School, Hickson Middle School, there's some great schools in our district. They're in the middle of those schools, and there's some people that are getting left out. And our schools aren't doing well. So we're looking for what we want in a superintendent. And I would argue that probably that's the most difficult job in our county, the superintendent of schools. That's an important job. Well, our school board failed in how they supervise their one employee. And that's why we've gotten to this place. Absolutely. This school, Loftus School, performs off the chart. Let me say one other thing about education, because I think even Mr. Martin will agree with me. I've always said the second most important relationship in any young person's life is that classroom teacher. That classroom teacher will spend more time, more awake hours with a young person than a parent will. But we don't take care of them. We don't take care of them. I was at the school board office the other day, and I walked into the office, and there was a lady there playing solitaire. So I questioned, where has the supervision been, the oversight of our schools, the last 4 years?
Dr. Martin, I'll give you a chance to rebut that, but I guess the original question was on economic development. First of all, do you think that incentives are appropriate and necessary to spur and to recruit businesses here, and under what circumstances should they be granted? And then maybe perhaps you can address the question about the adequacy of our superintendent.
Sure. And I have been one of 9 people that have been responsible for the superintendent. I gave him the lowest rating in his last evaluation. I never voted for his $25,000 increase that was a couple of years ago into the newest contract. And I was the one that, when we were in the midst of the trouble on the school board, that said we need to get out of neutral and we need to move forward, and made the decision that we needed to make a change. Unfortunately, I'm one of 9, and in regard to that, but I'm very proud of the way that I have conducted myself with, I think, class and dignity, even a difficult, very difficult situation. To your question, and I agree with Mr. Smith about teachers are the most valuable thing, and I know that because I'm married to one. What I know about education, I know more about from my wife and from my friends like Pam and Mike Kirk and others that are educators that I bounce things off with about what's important when it comes to education. And to the economic piece, should we give pilots and so forth? I think there are certain situations where you have to look at those things, and if it makes sense, I would rather give a tax relief for a business to locate in Hickson than for them to go up to Graysville or to Dayton, Tennessee. One thing people need, in certain situations, everyone's got to be looked at, it's got to be fair, it's got to be equitable in regard to that. One thing that people need to realize, when we do those pilots in this county, the school system still collects 100% of the taxes for the school system. When our county got together and we brought Volkswagen here, and we gave all kinds of incentives, the state did. Thank you, Senator Bo Watson. Our county did. Thank you, Mayor Coppinger and others that were involved in that. That was important, but here's the thing you need to understand. One of the reasons our school system has been able to flourish financially, and we've been able to have so much more money put in, is because we've been able to get that because the pilot money has not been taken away from the educational component. And I think that's a very important thing for people to understand in that process.
We have a question. We'll start with you, Greg Martin. If elected, who would you recommend for the county commission? Who would you recommend for the District 3 school board seat that you would vacate if you were obviously elected?
That is a great question. There are no loaded questions. That is a great question. And I've been asked that many times. In fact, I've had no less than 35 people tell me that they were interested, that if I do win this and am favored by the people of Hickson, that they were interested in taking my place on the school board. And I love that. When I was in the school board race in 2012, Joe was in that, I was in that, a few other people were in that, trying to get that in. And I remember when I got on the school board in Hamilton County, I remember talking to my brother. My sister's here tonight, and her husband Jeff, and my nephew Hayden. But when my brother, who's not here tonight, he said to me, he said, "Have you lost your mind? They're never going to pick you. You're such an outsider. Nobody even knows you." And I said, "Well, I'll put my name in, we'll see what would happen." And lo and behold, I won on the 5-4 appointment. And so I really just kind of backed into it. It wasn't any great conspiracy. But to your question is this. I don't have any individual in mind, Dave. What I do have is a profile, not a person. And that is, I would want someone who is a fierce advocate for Hickson High School and for our community. I would want someone who comes at it from a business background. I would want someone who would question everything to death and not just rubber stamp everything that happens there that's presented to the school board. I would want someone who is not afraid to look at the cobwebs and someone who will communicate and work with the county commission. In essence, I would want someone to do business the way I feel like I've done business these last 4 years.
Joe, obviously, if you're elected county commissioner, you would be working with Greg Martin as the school board member here in this district, given that you had a campaign against one another. Could you work together well? How would you?
I think with the questions that's been asked and the responses, that it's pretty clear. Greg and I don't differ a lot on the issues. We don't. I think we probably have the same value, moral system. We don't differ a lot. I'm a consensus maker. It's what I've done all my life. I will have no problem working with Greg. I would question. It's interesting. Mr. Martin referenced this a few minutes ago about a leadership group that he and Commissioner Hayes started at Hickson High School, and that's admirable. I would doubt maybe any other commissioners in the district have done that. But many times, Greg would call me, or Marty would call me, to come up there and speak to those kids, and I did it on several occasions. I just can't understand why Mr. Martin wants to leave the school board if he's done such a great job, and I believe he has done some really good things. Why would he want to leave the school board and go on to the commission where you have very little control over what happens in the school once you sign up on that budget? So, that's a compelling question.
Minute for rebuttal.
I would love to answer that question. And when Mr. Smith came and spoke to our group, he did a phenomenal job. Joe Smith is a great man. He does great work with young people, especially people that are in trouble and that need someone to tell them how the real world is when it comes to things like that. And I appreciated him coming. He was one of the best speakers. We had Judge Phil Yaw, the sheriff, and all kinds of firemen, business people come and speak to that class. It was good. Joe was one of the better persons that came and connected with those young people. I would agree that Joe and I, maybe we do or don't disagree. I'm not sure politically where he is really, but I do know that one difference is the depth. And I believe that I have a depth of understanding of these issues. One of the reasons that I want to go to the county commission is because it's an opportunity for expanded service. I love the way Mayor Coppinger has said it. When you're on the school board, you can only talk about one thing, and that's education. You can never change the channel. On the county commission, there's all kinds of opportunities. There's education, there's economic development, there's zoning, there's safety, there's fire and police. There's all kinds of issues. And I believe that I'm equipped and that I have the opportunity to bring to an expanded service just like other people have done, and I look forward to doing that. When our mayor was our commissioner, he became the mayor. When Marty Haynes was the commissioner, he became the property assessor, and we in this room elected him by 75% vote, and I look forward to the opportunity to serve in this expanded capacity.
One final question I wanted to raise. Some people have raised the question about privatizing our jails downtown. Hamilton County was a leader in hiring the Correctional Corporation of America 25, 30 years ago to run Silverdale Workhouse. Do you think that in terms of building a new jail that we should turn to CCA or other private companies? The Bureau of Prisons on the federal level has had more questions about privatizing prisons.
Well, the federal government's backing away from that and putting the corrections that are in the hands of the federal government back under government control. There are studies going on right now of what would be best for the taxpayer and how we should approach rebuilding or outsourcing that for an outside company to run that jail. I don't know if anybody has the answer to that now, but it's something that we're going to have to look at, what's going to be best, and where we're going to get the best bang for our buck from the taxpayers, and what's going to be best for our county. I think that until we get some of those studies back and look at some of those figures, I don't think that's a question that can be answered, whether we privatize it or not.
Dr. Martin, philosophically, does it matter if jails are run by the government or private sector?
Well, we are the government. I'm not a fan of the federal government telling us what to do in education. I'm not a fan of the federal government telling us what to do on the local level. I mean, there is a reason that there's 50 United States. I realize sometimes legally lawyers get involved and the federal government's going to cram it down your throat and you've got to do what they say. And if they tell us that we can't have a county jail or there's laws that are passed in that regard or court orders that are issued by the Supreme Court, then they are and we have to deal with those things. But that privatization issue, as I understand, is on the federal level for the federal prisons and not necessarily right now. I realize that's an issue that's coming, but they've not had rulings on that on the state level or the county level. Am I correct in that, Dave? Okay. So I would say this. I would use my experience on the school board. We talked several years ago. I talked with the superintendent about how wonderful it would be to employ some of our young people in the summertime to help clean our schools so they could learn, they could get a job, they could learn some life skills and those kinds of things. And we kicked that thing all around the school board and talked about that and made the decision that in the end, that wasn't the best decision. Sound like a great idea. I still think in my heart and in my head that's a great idea. At the end of the day, business-wise with liability, it wasn't the best thing to do. And I think we're going to have to look at this issue in the same way and see what's best for the taxpayers of Hamilton County.
Thank you, gentlemen. Now we'll go to your closing statements, and Joe Smith, 2 minutes for your closing.
2 minutes is not very long. So if you listen fast, I'll talk fast. Let me tell you, I turned 62. I didn't have a birthday last year. I just turned 63 the other day. My 62nd birthday bothered me. Listen, let me tell you what bothered me. I got to look at the mortality tables. 62, Caucasian, American, male. And I realized that it's about 80% older. About 80% older. And you can do the math in your own life. But this ain't home. Let me tell you something. This ain't home. We're just passing through. That's what this is. So we ought to be getting up every day, looking for ways that we can help people. This is about people. It's about serving people. It's about doing the right thing. It shouldn't be about furthering personal careers or climbing the political tree. I'm 62 years old, 63, October the 11th. I'm not going anywhere. I don't have any aspirations to climb any political ladder. My opponent should stay on the school board. That's where he should stay. That's where he claims to have done all this good, and I believe he has done some good. I question the way he handled the superintendent, but that's okay. He should stay on the school board. Put personal agendas aside, forget about trying to climb the political ladder, and do what's best for people. Do what's best for people. We've got to stop fighting one another along political lines and come together and solve problems. Because let me tell you something. This ain't home. We're just passing through. We're passing through.
Yes, Dr. Burton?
I used to work in the cemetery business for 20 years. I don't care if you're 62, 22, or 82. You might be in the last 1% of your life. That's one of the things I loved about that business, gave me great appreciation, but that is not what this business is about. This business is about our taxes and our government and who has the knowledge and the experience. My support has come from the people in Hickson. Financial records, my opponent, 82% of the people that are financially backing him do not live in this community. His campaign managers from Saudi Daisy, his treasurers from Signal Mountain, his communication directors from East Ridge. 82% of his money comes from outside District 3. My campaign manager is Mike Baskett, who lives in Hickson. My treasurer is Frank Stile, who lives in Hickson, and many people have their insurance policies with him. I'm proud to have over 72% of the people that are financially supporting my campaign be the voters that live in this community. I've invested my life in Hickson. My opponent's done a great job downtown with young people, with inner city children, and helping them. And I commend him and applaud him and say, keep on keeping on doing that. That's wonderful. But that's not what this is about. This race is about who is going to represent our community on the county commission and who's invested their time and their energy here. And I respectfully ask for your vote on November the 8th to be the next county commissioner of District 3. Thank you very much.
Thank you, gentlemen. Let's give them a big hand.
We just want to thank everybody for coming to the event. We want to thank Dr. Martin and Mr. Smith, and thank Mr. Fleitzner for moderating the event. And as both candidates said, please vote. Thank you.
Cheryl, good job. It was behaved well on time.
We're going to see her. She's very proud of her.
You're not one of the ones that call on the phone? Hey man, come on. How you I know. Hey man.
Well, it only lasted, I think it just.
I do not want to be on that. You don't? I do not. I'm gonna vote you in. You have to take care of Hickson High School. I know.
That's true. That's true.
If you're
I got a page for it.
I got a paycheck for you. That's the worst part.
Yeah, there's no pass.
You did a good job. Thank you, sir.
She's done. She's done.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I will call you about that.
That'll be fine. I'll be down.
I'm sorry.
I figured y'all got my stories covered.
I knew it, but I wasn't real confident about it. It's like almost throwing a jacket. You get hit by somebody else's jacket.
Ron, how you doing, bud? Good. How about you? Remember bacon? I bet you. Still living around.
I'm working on the night show.
Yeah, yeah.